It's recording. Perfect. So I hope you guys can see my screen now. I'm gonna go to full screen mode. So interrupt me if you don't see it, but it should be visible now to everyone. So first, a few words about me. I don't want to spend too much time. Most of you already know me. What's I think most important to say is I've been an entrepreneur for many years. I started as a software developer when I was at school. My first job was, I think it was 19 in software development. Then at age of 27, I started my first business. And over the last 10 years, I successfully founded and sold 4 startup companies, all in the tech space. After that, after the last exit, I went on a 3-year world trip to discover the world and to learn about different cultures and ecosystems. And that's where the idea or the vision of Neco came in, where it started. So 3 years ago, I returned and started with the Neco project, which is what I'm going to present today in the presentation. Yeah, this is a comment or quote from Paul Gilding, who was working for Greenpeace for a long time. And he said, our economic system is based on an absurd idea that you can have infinite growth on a finite planet. And that really is the issue with our system today, this growth. And when you look around, and now with Corona more than ever before, it is very clear that the collapse of our system is imminent. And this is very clear when you look at how our system works. You know, it's something that is kind of inevitable. Our system creates a lot of debt. Actually, there's more debt now, 3 times more debt in the world than money, which kind of means that our system is completely bankrupt. It's impossible to pay back the debt. And in the recent years, we have seen the big crisis coming. We have had negative interest here in the European Union. And it was also foreseeable that there's a recession coming. Now with Corona, that's going to be a really hard recession, and it's going to stop the growth of our economy for at least this year and the next, but maybe even longer. Let me see the political crisis, the power struggle between China and the United States, trade wars going on, refugee crisis, and obviously Corona crisis. Keep in mind, I made these slides before Corona, but now it's even more obvious to see where we are in the world and why our system is in a crisis. And then last but not least, the ecological crisis. We are facing climate change, mass extinction of species like never before in the last 200 million years, and water shortage in many areas like India, United States, but also areas like Germany and Europe. And what brought me to think about joining the financial space and doing something in crypto was when I realized that most of our problems in today's world are a result of our financial system. It would be easy to solve a lot of these problems like hunger, poverty, and even the environmental destruction, because we have enough food, we have enough technology to do this. It's always money that's missing. So it's the limitation of money that's causing this problem, or overall our banking and monetary system. And in the early 20th century, Henry Ford already recognized this when he said that people do not understand our banking and monetary system. For if they did, there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. So I'm gonna, on the next slides, I'm gonna just explain some of the basics about money, because I have realized in many discussions that quite a lot of people do not know the basics. And it's something that is quite common because we're not really told the truth about money in school or at university. So that's why a lot of people don't understand how the system really works. So first, I want to discuss some of the basic principles of money. What is it? What's the purpose of money? In general, it serves 2 purposes. One is a means of exchange. So you can use money to buy products and then earn money for your work and buy other products. So you don't have to exchange like sheep for cows and so on, as we did before. And the other purpose is a store of value. So you can earn money now and use it later, for example, when you're in your pension. And well, when you look at our current fiat currencies out there, like the United States dollar or the euro, you will find that they're not really a store of value. If you look at the development of the value, the purchasing power of the dollar over the last 100 years, you see it has lost almost 95% of its value. And when you look at the euro over the last 15 years since its introduction, you see the same, over 22% lost until today. So they're not preserving, they're not acting as a real store of value. And also all these currencies are limited in their regional acceptance. So you can't, there's no global currency, you can only pay in that particular country or region like the Eurozone. But if you go outside, these currencies are not even accepted as money. But one thing that I find is really important to understand, and that for me is the most shocking, collective ignorance that we have as humanity show today, is that we do not understand that money is nothing but fiction. Money isn't real, it's numbers, and theoretically money is unlimited. There's no reason why there is a limit of money. 90% of the global money supply is digital, so it's only numbers stored on computer systems. And over 90% of that money was created by private banks. Most people believe it's the central bank that creates the money. Yes, they print the coins and the banknotes, but 90% of the money supply is actually created by private banks through their fractional reserve banking system when they create loans. And now we live in a world of abundance. We have enough food for everyone. We have enough technology to live sustainable. We have enough medicine to cure almost all diseases. But it's the scarcity of money that creates the true problems like poverty, hunger, and then leads to exploitation of the resources, the people, and the planet. So it's really money that's the problem right now. And that's where we can solve the problems. So this is a very important quote from Buckminster Fuller. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. And that's the core idea behind Neco as well. We don't want to fight the existing system. We don't want to change the existing system through political means. We want to build something brand new, a new model that is better than the existing one and allow people to transition from the old system into the new system. So how does our system look like? I tried to reduce it into like 3 core components of our system. The first one is the Neco. It's our currency, a stable currency with low volatility. So in contrast to Bitcoin, which is very volatile, it's going up and down. And it's also, just as a side note, Bitcoin also doesn't act as a store of value. If you look at 2018, Bitcoin lost 75% of its value in 1 year. And in the Corona crisis, in the first months, March, it lost 50% of its value. It has regained it now, but you see it's up and down, high volatility, and doesn't really act as a store of value. And that's why for a currency, it's really important to be stable, for people to build trust in it and to use it on a day-to-day basis. So stability and low volatility are two of the core criteria for our currency. Then the other thing is Neco is secured by a reserve. We use a reserve in fiat currencies. So there's an actual value behind it. The euro is not backed up by anything. The Bitcoin is not backed up by anything, but we have backup in a variety of different currencies who are, stabilizing the system again. And our system is free of charge. No transaction fees as with Bitcoin, no banking fees as with the euro. It's really a free currency. The next thing is the Neco system. That's our financial system. And in contrast to our existing financial system, which is very negative, we want to build a financial system that is sustainable and has a positive triple bottom line. So it comes with positive money through our Neco currency and no debt. There's simply no public debt in our system. The second thing is the universal basic income. So we want to provide money to the people so they can make a decent living. And we also want to finance or help the planet by financing projects that protect our climate. Last but not least, the Neocracy, that's our organization that manages the currency. It's a decentralized collective organization, an organization without hierarchies. So, there's no CEO, we have different roles and circles. It's a different way of managing an organization and avoids a concentration of power at the top. We make decisions collectively by involving our stakeholders, our users, our partners into the decision-making process to collect our system for collective intelligence. And it's based on some core values. Values like equality, sustainability, transparency, stability. And these values are enshrined in our constitution and form the basic of our actions. And all of our decisions have to be compliant with our values. Otherwise, these decisions will have to be redone. As I mentioned before, the system that we are building is a system with a positive triple bottom line. So triple bottom line means people. We want to be positive on that side socially by providing universal basic income on a global scale. We want to help the planet through a carbon offset program. And we also want to provide profit to our investors and users. And we're going to distribute that profit on a quarterly basis. As I mentioned before, all the major decisions in our organization are done collectively, and that includes the regulation of this triple bottom line. So this is a screenshot from our first regulation in the first quarter of 2020. And keep in mind, that's where Corona started. Bitcoin went down 50% in that period. Our price rose, our value rose by over 14%, reserves by over 30%. And we also provided additional money for our budgets for people, that's universal basic income, planet, that's the carbon offset. And 19% I already mentioned, this is profit for our investors. And the rest we put in our reserve for, for the future. What is important to see is that this decision how to distribute the earnings into these three buckets, people, planet, and profit, was done collectively. So everyone, every user, every investor had been asked, how would you distribute that money in percentages, 20% here, 30% here. And then we collected, or we calculated the collective average of all the surveys that we received back and used that to come to a collective decision. So this is a decision done by all users collectively. We're harvesting the intelligence of our, the collective intelligence of our users. Now, people then came back to me and asked, Florian, the first round of crowdfunding, you just raised like, what was it, 100,000 something euro. How is it possible that there are over 400,000 Neco in the budget for the planet? And so this is because we create that money. It's new money that we create. And we use a system called fractional reserve banking, which has been around for over 100 years and is the most common form of banking practice today. So don't, even though it may sound like, oh, this is something unusual, it actually is based on the traditional banking system as it is today. So this fractional reserve banking works the following way. We have to back up our Neco money supply by a fractional reserve. So it doesn't have to cover 100% of our money supply. It can cover less. The minimum is 10%. So for example, you see on the left-hand side, there's initially 50,000 Necos in the value of 50,000 euros in our Neco supply. So we would only need 5,000 euros in our reserve to back it up. That's enough. And as a comparison, traditional banks have between 1 to 5% reserve. In our system, the minimum is 10 because we want to be more stable than the existing system. Now, when people buy Neco tokens, they buy it with fiat currency. So that fiat currency goes into our reserve and increases our reserve. So in this example, we have an additional 1,000 euro in our reserve. With that additional 1,000 euro, we could theoretically create Neco in the value of 10,000 euro. And this is what you see on the right-hand side. Then we would make on a quarterly basis, this collective decision how to distribute these Necos in the value of 10,000 euros over the three parts of the triple bottom line, people, planet, and profit. And that money that we use in these budgets is new money that we create. We literally go into the system, create that money in Neco, and distribute it for these causes. So it's like, imagine we are like a central bank and we have the right to create money. We don't have to take the money from our investors and give it to someone else. We don't have to tax anyone. We create new money, which is still backed up by the money in our reserve, and use that money for the causes that we want to support. We are quite different from other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. And I like to start with this quote here. Most ICOs or cryptocurrencies are bought by people looking to flip their tokens to a greater pool for profit. And that's pretty much how Bitcoin works. If you go around and ask people what they think about Bitcoin and if they have lost money or won, you get different answers. Some people will say, I've made a lot of money. Some will say, I've lost a lot of money. Why is that? Because their model is a win-lose model. So one side wins when the other side loses, kind of. You know, in order to make profit with Bitcoin, you have to buy the tokens cheaper and then sell them to someone else for a higher price than you have bought them. You know, and this is not a sustainable model because you cannot always continue to sell it for more and more and more. It goes up and down. And typically what you see happening is that professional investors, they go in with large amounts of money and over time increase the value of the Bitcoin. And then they do a mass sell. So the currency goes down again and then start to reinvest when the value is low. And the traditional, I would say the standard investor who doesn't have all these experience, they usually come in when the Bitcoin value is really high, because then they hear about it in the news and the media, people have made a lot of money, they start investing, and then it falls down and they start selling and they go out with a loss. So this is the win-loss model that you see in almost all currencies that are traded on the market. And Neco is different. Our model is a win-win model. So first of all, the value of the Neco is not determined by the market and by, pure psychology. The value of the Neco increases if the reserve increases. So if we have more in the reserve, then we can increase the value of the Neco. If the reserve does not increase, the Neco just remains stable. The only exception is if we fall below the minimum of 10% in our reserve, then we correct the value down. But that's a rare case that we try to prevent because we want to keep that currency stable. The reserve increases if more tokens are bought and sold. As I mentioned before, more people buying Neco, that's increasing, that increases our reserve. More people selling the Neco, that will decrease the reserve. And if the Neco increases, all our users profit. It's not just one person, all of us profit. Everyone who holds tokens will profit. Obviously, the more tokens you hold, the more profit you will make. Another big difference is we don't change our exchange rate on a daily or per second basis like most of the cryptocurrencies. So we change the rate every quarter, not through the market, but through a collective decision. And another thing we want to do is we want to prevent speculation to affect our currency. So we have speculation fees, which work like in the following example. So if you buy Neco tokens before a regulation where you already expect that the value will go up, and then sell it the day after, yeah, you can do that, but you will not keep the profit from the change in the value. So there will be a speculation fee, which means pretty much you're selling at the same price that you bought it, and you won't be able to take the profit. So this is to prevent speculation, and it's a certain period of time. So if you keep your tokens for at least 6 months, then you will receive the profit. Otherwise, you will not receive profit. All right. So this is more about how to get invested and how to make profit with Neco. The steps are quite simple. So first of all, we need you to register. It's a simple registration, first name, last name, passport. We need that for identification. And we're currently still in a prototyping phase. We don't have the app yet. So we use Google Cloud as our platform. So you will need a Google account to register and also later to use our prototype platform. You can get a Google account for free. So there's no cost associated with that. So once you're registered and approved, you can make your payment. It's a simple bank transfer. The minimum investment is €500, or you can also pay in dollars or pounds. And you can earn Karma tokens starting at €1,000 investment. And I'll talk about the Karma token later on a later slide. Then once we receive the payment, we will open your account like a traditional bank account. You receive an account statement. And from that point on, you can make free transfers in Neco. Again, we don't have the app yet. So it's a simple form that you have to fill out if you want to transfer Neco from anyone to anyone. If you want to transfer Neco to someone who does not have a Neco account yet, you just have to enter that person's email address, and we will notify that person, and then he can register and access his funds once he has registered. You can always convert Neco back into a fiat currency of your choice, euro, dollar, Thai baht, whatever you want. But keep in mind, there's charges that apply for transfers in fiat. It's not that we are charging you, but our payment providers charge us a service fee. And so we just pass that through to you. You can do deposits and payouts at any time. So if you want to increase your investment, you can just transfer more money and it will automatically be credited to your account. And if you want to do payouts, you just have to fill out that transfer form and transfer money from your Neco account to your bank account, wherever it resides. Once you're registered for Neco, you also have voting rights for collectors, so you can participate in our surveys and referendums, and also participate in the decision-making process over the distribution of our money supply. Transparency is one of our core values, so we don't want our system to be a system like Bitcoin where it's more about illegal activities and dark web. We want to be transparent. You will get from us an annual tax certificate, which shows how much you've earned with Neco in this year, and then you can use that for your tax filings or not. It's not our responsibility, but we provide you with all the details you need. In terms of tax, Neco is considered like any other foreign currency. Like if you have another bank account in US dollars, it's exactly the same thing. The profit we're making is through a change or fluctuation in the currency exchange rate. So that's how it's booked officially, and that's how profit is generated, and that's how you might get taxed for that as well. Depends on your country, obviously, but any earnings usually you have to pay tax on it too. The next topic I want to discuss is universal basic income. We are launching universal basic income in October, and we're also paying backwards for existing investors back to the second quarter, because that's where we originally planned to roll it out. Then Corona came in between and locked me down on beautiful Koh Phangan Island. My laptop broke and I was unable to do what I wanted to do, so we decided to postpone our rollout of universal basic income until now. So how does universal basic income work? One of the key things to understand about Neco's universal basic income is that it's unconditional. It really is unconditional. Everyone can apply. It works like this. So every quarter, Collector sets the quarterly budget. At the moment, it's 155,000 Necos in our UBI budget. And that budget is then distributed by all people who apply for universal basic income. So if more people apply, the average allowance per month goes down. If there are less people that apply, then it goes up. The budget comes from money creation, so it's new money. It's not taxed or redistributed. So we're not taking your money or your investment and sending it to someone else. It's money that we create and then distribute as universal basic income. The monthly UBI allowance is determined by the personal karma level. And again, I'm going to talk about karma later on the next slide. But the higher your karma, the higher your monthly UBI allowance. Universal basic income cannot be converted into other currencies. So the money you receive is on a separate account, kind of. And you can only use that money to pay others in Neco. You cannot convert it back into euros, dollars, Thai baht, or so on. And again, universal basic income is taxable. It's a source of income. So at the end of the year, you will get your tax certificate, and then you can decide whether you want to put that into your tax filings or not. And that's how universal basic income looks like in terms of the amounts that we are gonna distribute in October. So first, in order to receive it, you have to submit your UBI application. And so first of all, you have to be registered. That's important. That's why I asked you guys to register before tomorrow, because if you want to receive UBI for the month of September, you have to be registered in September, and then in October we will distribute that money. The first distribution of universal basic income will be for the quarters of quarter 2 and quarter 3, but always depends on when you first registered for Neco. So all existing investors who have been part of the first round in the first quarter, they will receive 6 months of UBI. And if you register now for September, then you will just receive UBI for the month of September. The budget for the next quarter, Q4, will be regulated collectively in October. So once we have finished this round, we will again collectively decide how much budget we put into the Q4 budget, and then distribute that money across all users that apply for UBI. At the moment, the basic unit for UBI is 300 Neco per month. Yeah, that is for Karma level 1, so you have 1 Karma token. And with every Karma level, it kind of doubles. So Karma level 2 is 600, Karma level 3 is 900, and so on. The maximum that you can have is Karma level 10, which is 3,000 Neco per month, which is around 1,200 euros. So quite a decent amount to live with. And so the idea really is to increase your Karma as soon as you can, because the more Karma, the more universal basic income. And you never lose Karma. Karma is a token, as I will explain in the next slides. Karma is a token that you do not lose. You just start earning and earning and earning. The last thing here on our side, on this, not the last, but the other topic I want to discuss here is carbon free tax. That's our way of offsetting carbon emissions for people and companies on a global scale. It's a project to finance global reforestation projects. So we're planting trees to take the carbon out of the air. Quite simple. We plan to introduce the carbon free tax in the 4th quarter. It's a free tax because it's a voluntary donation. So you don't have to, you can. If you pay, there's a very simple tariff model. We have put a price on the ton of carbon of 20 euros per ton. That's a value that's regulated by Colexa and might change in future. And you can choose either one of our flat rates. A flat rates for, let's say, the normal person. That depends on where you live. Like, German, the flat rate for Germany is usually around 200 euros per year, based on the average per capita emissions of carbon dioxide of a German person. There's a discount for vegetarians, and there's an extra charge for frequent flyers like me. So we have to pay a little more because of all these flights. Or if you're not happy with the flat rates, you can also do an individual calculation. You go to our carbon footprint calculator, calculate your exact carbon footprint, multiply that with 20 euros per ton, and that's the carbon free tax you can pay. When you pay that, it's considered a donation. So you will receive a tax certificate. So you can actually deduct that from your tax filings. And you will receive Karma tokens for paying your carbon free tax, which will, on the flip side, increase your universal basic income. Okay, so I mentioned Karma a few times before. That's the second token in our system, and in my opinion, the most valuable one. Karma is a token for positive action. Karma is not money. It's a token for positive actions, and it cannot be bought, it cannot be sold, it cannot be transferred, and it cannot be converted. It can only be earned. The number of Karma tokens determine the Karma level. So you can collect a lot of Karma tokens over time, but we always have these 10 levels or 11 levels from 0 to 10. And based on these karma levels, we will distribute services like universal basic income, but also future services like education and healthcare. So the more karma you have, the more services we will provide to you. The vision behind karma is a world beyond money. So it's a token where you can increase your karma level over time through positive actions, and the higher you get with your karma, the less you have to worry about money. First of all, because you get universal basic income, but second, we want to encourage our community, and especially vendors, hotels, and so on, to give people discount for the karma level. So if you have karma level 1, you get 10% discount. If you have karma level 10, you get things for free, right? So for example, if I have karma level 10, I want to stay at an Airbnb in Copenhagen, then people who participate can say, Flo, you have so much karma, you can stay here for free. And that way, I wouldn't have to worry about money, and I can live in a world where I don't have to pay for everything. I just use the services provided by the community. So a karma-based community. So obviously that's a vision, and that's far, far, far out, but that's where we want to go with karma. So karma is never directly related to money. It cannot be converted into money. It's just a token that reflects the positive actions you have done in your history. There are 3 different ways of earning karma in general. First is by making financial contributions, supporting us financially. You receive karma, for example, if you invest more than, or at least 1,000 euros. You get karma when you pay your free tax, or you get karma when you make a donation to our nonprofit. The second way to earn karma is by investing time. So through volunteering. The best way to do this is to become a member of our Neco for Future nonprofit association, because we have regular meetings where we sit together, have our video conferences, and discuss what we can do to help the planet or the people. It's our association that deals with universal basic income and with the carbon offset projects. So if you want to participate, it's a good way to earn karma. And we just have regular meetings, Fridays usually, where we do different projects, we assign different tasks, and we get some work done. And 1 day per month will earn you a karma token. So every month you can earn another karma token on top of that. The last way to earn karma is through referring others, spreading the word, so to say. And here it's very simple. You earn karma for referring 2 new investors, 2 new members, 2 new free taxpayers. So that's the way how we want to support the spreading of the word, the spreading of our currency, by rewarding people for referring Neco to other users, to new users. It always seems impossible until it's done. Here's our roadmap. It also goes back into the past, so I'm just gonna just explain a few things which we have done in the past. So 2018 is more or less where we started. We participated in a business plan contest here in Germany through all 3 levels to get our business plan reviewed by a lot of professional investors and entrepreneurs. Then 2019, we started our first test of our system. We built the organization. We tested things like our protection against bank runs and bankruptcies, transactions, and so on and so on. And then this year, we have started to develop our prototype. So we brought our first users on board. We started our crowdfunding. And we have started to build our prototype on the Google Cloud platform. As I said, it's not the final version. The final version will be an app, the Neco app, and the StackChain technology. But this is going to be developed now after this round of crowdfunding. If we have enough money in our development budget, we will start the development of these apps and technologies. And for next year, we have planned the rollout of Neco. We're currently focusing on the European region, especially Germany and Malta. Germany because it's a big country. Malta because it has the best crypto regulation in the world at the moment, and that's where we will probably launch our ICO. But you can use it we try to roll it out globally, and you can already use it, in any kind of country. We have users in Europe, we have users in America, we have users in Asia. In every of these following years, we plan to do at least one ICO. For next year, we have planned the Neco ICO. ICO is initial coin offering. It's the public offer. We are still in the private sales phase, so it's just a private offer. That's why you don't find anything about this offer on our website. So it's only limited to people that we know, we invite, or that get invited by others. The Neco ICO will be the first one where we start selling the Neco publicly to the Neco ICO. In 2022, the StackChain ICO will follow. StackChain is our own carbon neutral blockchain technology that we are developing. We're already starting with it. We've already developed the first prototype. We will use it internally in the next year. And once it's ready to go public, we will provide this technology as a service to others, to other cryptocurrencies, but also to other companies to manage data in a decentralized storage. And the last ICO scheduled is Colexa ICO. Colexa is our system of collective intelligence. We're already working with a prototype of it. We will use it internally first. And once we have used it, we have used it for long and gotten some experience with it, we will open that technology to the market and through an ICO, put it on the market as a system of collective intelligence. It's targeted mostly for companies who can use it to do surveys. It's like a survey system, but a little bit more intelligent, to do things like forecasting, but also to politicians and political parties so they can survey their constituents and find out more about what they really want and make more, and let political decisions be supported by collective intelligence. Because I think right now, when you look at the world, a lot of political decisions are not really that intelligent. And if you include the intelligence of all the constituents and all the people in a country, you can definitely make better decisions than most of our politicians do today. So that's the idea behind Colexa. Yeah, and that's how we envision this switch from old system to new system to look like. It's as simple as downloading an app. You download the Neco app, you open an account, you exchange your existing fiat currency, euro, dollar, whatever, for a Neco, and then you can start paying with Neco. You can invite friends that are not already part of Neco, they just will be invited. You can pay anyone globally with no fees. And if you refer Neco to other people, you can earn a bonus too. Yeah, if you want to get started now, first thing, the most important thing is to register. So that's the most important step to do. You don't have to invest to receive universal basic income. Register just means we get your contact details and your identity, your passport as an identity verification. And then afterwards, you can decide whether you want to buy Neco tokens, you want to pay your carbon free tax. You can also join our nonprofit association to earn some karma. And you can also work for us because we're looking to increase the size of our team and hire new people. We're a very flexible organization. As I said, decentralized, no hierarchies, there is no boss. We have defined roles and you have certain responsibilities within your role. And we're quite flexible. We have no office. We work from remote. We use video conferencing like Zoom most of the time. And we have a flexible working time model. So you can work for us with 1 day a week up to 5 days a week, and you're quite flexible. We wanted to have this system from the beginning on. Now with Corona, it's even more relevant because a lot of people have now learned to work from home and to be more flexible. So it's a work model that we think is a model for the future. And last but not least, you can share our vision through social media. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Xing. Always on the same tag, Neco currency. All right, that's it for my presentation. I think I've done quite well on time. Stop sharing. And yeah, now I would like to open the round for questions from everyone. So if there's any open questions, just Yeah, raise your voice, turn on your microphone or video.
A quick thing, can you record this bit as well? The questions.
It's still recording, yeah?
Okay, that's good. I'm happy for you to record me.
Okay, yeah, you are recorded. You are being recorded.
Good. I have a bunch of questions.
Good.
Maybe I should let the other people go first.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Anyone want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I go first. That maybe you get some karma if you let me first.
Okay.
No, I also have 2 or 3 questions.
Sure.
So first of all, thanks very much for the presentation. It's very interesting and an exciting way, I think. One question first would refer to the volatility. I mean, you state it's kind of a low volatility currency, but in the end, volatility is determined by demand and supply. And I mean, just assuming everybody wants out to the same door and wants to exchange back his Neco into fiat currency. So how would you then, in such a case, will make sure that the volatility wouldn't spike? So this would be the first question. Secondly, it's I mean, you actually do this a similar way as the national banks. In the end, you have a multiplier now of 10. So you multiply your fiat currencies by 10. And I mean, you only can live if new money comes into the system. So that's my understanding. I mean, you can't create value out of, if you don't get net new money, you also don't have any profit. So it only, the system only survives if you get more and more money. So it's similar like a snowball system. So and I mean, maybe you have waited for that question, I would assume, but
yeah. It's a very typical concern, but I'll explain why it's not a snowball system.
That, yeah.
Okay, and question number 3, or
yeah, the one thing, I mean, you mentioned that Bitcoin is more speculative, but
yeah,
and I agree. However, as the inflation possibility is limited in Bitcoin, I mean, in terms of the new Bitcoins that can be created, so it's kind of it makes, or it should make inflation at some stage impossible, but this is also nothing that I see here. So because of this net new money supply that can go to whatever extent. So maybe there also, if you can say something.
Yeah, so they're really good questions, and questions I hear on a regular basis. So first of all, about volatility. So there's a big difference. So you said, you know, it's a demand and supply system. Neco is not. You know, it's not demand and supply that changes the value of the currency. It's the collective regulation. It's where our users decide, you know, how much of our additional money in the increase of the reserve will be distributed to profit. That's what's driving up the value or driving down the value. And it's done on a quarterly basis. So it's indirectly connected to a reserve increase, which is kind of, you know, more demand, more reserve, kind of, yes. So there is a connection, but it's not directly linked to demand and supply. In the case where you mentioned correctly, in this fractional reserve banking system has one big downside in the current system, not for Neco. In the current system, the fractional reserve system can lead to so-called bank runs. So if everyone goes to a bank and wants to take out their deposits, the bank will collapse, because then they don't have enough deposit to cover up all the credit, the loans they have made. So this is this has been the key issue for all the major financial crises, bank runs in the Great Depression, 1930s, as well as in the financial crisis in 2008. So our system is protected against simply, you know, we are not obliged, Neco is not obliged to convert Neco back into fiat. So if our reserve comes to a point where like around 10% or less, people just cannot convert their Necos back into euro or dollar. So we prevent exactly that, the bank run. And that means we still have a reserve. Our system can still operate, can still function. You can still pay in Neco, and it creates another incentive to pay in Neco, not to convert it back into fiat, but you cannot convert it back into fiat. Okay, so that's the way how we prevent a bank run. And we have tested that 2 times in 2019 and it worked. So this is the difference. It's not, the volatility is not is much lower because it's not driven by the market, and it's not on a day-to-day basis based on psychology. It's on a quarterly basis based on actual quarter results, the increase of the reserve. So now your second thing was it's a snowball system. It is not. So why is it not a snowball system? Obviously, you're right. The value only increases if our reserve increases, which means more people buy Neco than sell. But if they don't continue buying more, it's not collapsing. It will just remain stable. You know, if for a long period of time our reserve doesn't increase, the currency will just stay stable. It's a stable coin, and we will continue working and working. And it cannot fall below the 10% because we have mechanisms in place to prevent that. And so as long as we want to make profit, obviously we have to grow, but that makes sense. You know, if we're not growing, then there's no profit to distribute. But the currency can still remain stable. In that situation, we won't be able to issue universal basic income. We won't be able to do reforestation. So unfortunately, that would not be a very nice situation to be in for a longer period of time. But the system is not collapsing like a snowball system. It still remains stable and is a stable coin.
Okay, sorry, just one follow-up question, and I give the floor right to the others.
Yeah.
So this also means that if it's currently, if the reserve is 10%, and let's say I would invest €1,000,
yeah,
then I could theoretically only withdraw €100 tomorrow or in a quarter. And
no, you can still withdraw your full amount. So there are different rules how we budget it. So pretty much what you put in, you can take out.
Okay.
Okay. So and then others can take out a little less because they haven't put in so much. Like universal basic income, for example, cannot be converted back into euros. So the reserve is allocated more towards the investors have really put in money than towards people who are just receiving universal basic income or receiving money through our services. Okay.
Okay.
There's another good question which goes into a similar direction from Stefan to our chat. So I'd like to answer that before we continue with Marcus. So he said the Neco currency is more stable than the euro that is backed up by nothing, but Neco itself is backed up by euros. That's one of the most common questions I get. So, you know, how can it be backed up by something if that is backed up by nothing? Yeah, well, there's a difference. So, and look at, for example, Venezuela. The Venezuelan bolivar collapsed dramatically because of a political crisis. And that was because, like all the other currencies, is not backed up by anything. If people lose trust in the bolivar, there's nothing that protects that currency. So it goes down. In our case, there still is other currencies behind it. You know, so even if you don't trust Neco, you still would trust either the euro or the dollar, and it's mixed. It's a diversity of fiat currencies. And then, you know, even in the case that, like we had last year, we had the pound going down because of Brexit. So we sold all our pounds and converted them into euro, which was more stable. And we took out currencies that are unstable. That's also a reason we're not taking in Bitcoin, because it's just too volatile for our reserve. And our reserve is not limited to fiat currencies. So this is what we do now because it's sufficient for our purpose. But in future, we can also replace it or put other assets in there, real assets like real estate, cars, or other things. So our reserve is open for change in the future. And, you know, it's hard to say what's going to happen now. You know, the situation is, you know, now you can't even predict the next week, whether you can fly there or not. So we do that. We are an agile organization. We react to changes as they come. So when we see, okay, the euro is crashing, then we start selling them and, put other currencies in our reserve or other assets. So we are flexible to change, but we always have another asset, another element of trust in our reserve. Not like the euro, who's simply backed up by nothing. If you lose the trust in the euro, the currency goes down. So yeah, if the euro crashes, we would just go into another currency. But the thing is, we still need euros because our users usually want to exchange them. The reserve is also the way how to exchange. So, there's always a reason why we would keep a certain amount of euros. But if we have a crash in one currency, we can go into other currencies or into other assets. Okay. All right. I think, Marcus, your time now for your questions. I hope maybe I've answered some of them already.
You have answered some of them, but I'm going to give a little bit of background about myself and what I'm doing, and maybe we will talk more later. I hope so.
Okay.
So I'm doing a PhD at the moment at Uvascular.
Yeah.
And my topic was community currencies and rural regeneration.
Yes.
I'm very much interested in resilience and building resilience
in
the face of climate change and extinction. So I've been involved with setting up Extinction Rebellion in Finland and many
cool. Yeah.
things. And now I'm connected with a project called Earth Regenerators that Joe Brewer is leading from, he's in Colombia now, but he's an American. He's living there now with his family, and there's a whole bunch, about 2,000 of us have grown over the last year. So it's very rapid growth, but he himself has been working on cultural evolution for about 10 years. Okay, so that's a very good history of me. What I'm now trying to do is to write an article for my PhD, and the theme of the article is about money and reputation of money and trust of money. But my focus, as I say, is on community currencies. So what I'm interested to know is why would somebody use this money rather than that money? And in this case, we have a really good example because we have the Neco. So we can contrast Neco with Bitcoin, with fiat currencies, with community currencies. So that's a little bit of what I'm interested in. So I want to get a few thoughts that are thinking about that. But yeah, fantastic presentation. I really like the way this could go. And I could see, I especially like the karma aspect. So the way that you have kind of two ways of trading. You have one money system, which is the Neco, linked to fiat currency, and the karma system, which is very much a community of trust. So that really works with lots of other examples of kind of gift economy. So two really good ones I know is book crossing. I don't know if you've come across that.
No.
People buy books, and then they put a number in them, and they give the book, and people just give the book on. They don't charge it. They don't get anything back from it, and people keep a diary. So that's one. And another one is, you probably know this as well, as Hospitality Club. It started in Germany. Couch surfing is another similar one. And there's Servas, and there's been a number of different ones. And before we had what's called the jerk tech, kind of taking over things like Uber, where people tried to make money out of it. The idea was you would just give a place for people to stay. If you wanted to stay for up to a week, you could stay for free at someone's house. So that was maybe about 10 years ago. That was really big, and now people think they can make money out of it. So it's changed a bit. But karma is bringing that back, and I find that really interesting. That way of bringing in that kind of free sharing culture. So I really like that way of changing people to think in that way. So that's really great. Okay, so that's my background. So my first question was, how is Necco backed? So you've said it's backed by a mixture of fiat currencies and then the assets. So I guess you've thought about what some of those assets might be. Like, would there be a forest, or what kind of assets were you thinking of?
So right now it's only fiat currencies. We don't have other assets in there. So I'm a big fan of the sharing economy. I'm a digital nomad. I use most of my tools that I use car sharing. I use Airbnb, room sharing. So I share as much as I can, because that is the most effective and efficient way, in my opinion, to use property. So one example could be, the people sell their property, and we acquire real estate in our reserve and receive Neco in return, thereby making places public and giving back private property land to public use. I'm one of the people who thinks, owning land is something that has some issues with my value system. Before the agricultural revolution, nobody owned land. This is something that has just recently happened, and then it's passed on through generations by inheritance, which is also a little unfair in many ways. Or you could use it for car sharing. You sell your car because you need money to the Neco community. It becomes part of our reserve, an asset. Unfortunately, cars lose value. That's a disadvantage. But then we could use that car for a car sharing model. And you can rent it if you want and receive money initially in Necos. And we have an asset in our reserve. So there are multiple ways. I'm not a big fan of gold and silver because, again, there is no real value in gold. It's used for a few things in cell phones, but it's more a psychological thing. And the extraction process is damaging the environment. And when you look at, the history, how much damage gold has caused, us, the indigenous populations, they thought initially we were mad, that the Western Spaniards were mad because they were believing in some kind of metal that they were finding and selling for high prices. And the only reason why it's so expensive is because it was used for coins and because we believe it's expensive. But it doesn't have much value. It's not a metal that we really need.
So in a way, the asset would be the community. It's a community of use that's the asset.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Neco is designed to also work without the reserve. It is used to stabilize it, but once we have enough trust, enough users, we wouldn't necessarily need it anymore. We could let go of the reserve and just manage our currency without the reserve in the background. But for now, I think the reserve is important to stabilize the system, also to facilitate the exchange between different currencies, and in future to maybe help, this sharing economy grow by taking private property or private assets and using it for the community.
What's the current level of the reserve in fiat currencies or in euro?
Around 100,000 euros.
Around 100,000 euros.
Yeah. So we will, one of our values is transparency. So we will publish these numbers in the future. That's something that's coming in the next quarter. There's always, we first need to have a policy, we need to have it tested, and then we roll it out. So there will be, you will receive a link where you can always see the latest numbers. We want our users to be able to see exactly what's going on. How much money is in the supply, in which budgets, and how much of that is in reserve.
That was going to be my next question. What's the capitalization? So you've answered that really. But also, I suppose, because our reserve isn't just going to be fiat currency, it is at the moment.
Yeah.
My next questions were, who's involved with it? So is there any business community or foundations or anybody else supporting it? Any significant individuals other than yourself, of course?
Thank you. So we're currently a community of around 150 users. It was our goal to stay in that kind of size dimension for the prototype. Too many is too much to handle for us. And the idea of the prototype phase is to work with a small community, test the system. We're always changing things. So we have to have people who are open for, okay, this isn't working, we change this, da, da, da. So some flexible process until we reach the point where it's like, okay, this is the model that we're going to put on the market and then go public. So our existing community is more or less, 150 users, investors that I know from my past. Most of the funding initially was from my investment company. And then our first round of crowdfunding that we started last year, and we finished last year. And now with this second round of crowdfunding, and we'll just continue these private crowdfunding phases until we reach the ICO. We haven't done a lot of work with merchants and stores because we're simply not at that stage. To talk to a supermarket, we would need to have the system up and running. And so for now, it's a small private community with people who share the same values. That's important because we're collectively making decisions, and we want to make sure that we have a community that has kind of, in the beginning at least, the core values in them. And once we expand, then we can let a more diverse range of users in with that don't have to be so much in line with our values.
Okay, so on that,
Yeah.
are there particular types of business which you would try to grow with, to approach?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, organic farms. Am I being stereotypical here if I pick the green sector?
Yes. Our target segment is called LOHAS, Lifestyles of Health and Sustainability. And that's a demographic segment that represents about 10 to 15% of the population of a country, increasing. And it's very easy to find these people because these are people who are into mind, body, soul, sustainable green products, healthy foods, car sharing, electric cars. And that's the initial segment that we want to focus our activity on because we have the best resonance with these people usually. It's very easy, for example, to get people to buy into Neco because they resonate with our values. And then from there, we want to expand. Also, our approach to expand, we want to grow viral and we want to focus on certain areas first, like for example, Munich, Malta, where we have cities or communities where we can address and find a lot of shops that start using the Neco because it's much easier to start in a city where okay, it's accepted by lots of stores. Then if you start globally and spread one store here, one store there, like Bitcoin does, you have a lot of people who accept Bitcoin globally, but if you go like into Munich, there's almost no place where you can pay with it. There's maybe one or two stores. So we want to increase the acceptance rate in a certain area and spread from there, like a virus. A virus spreads more in the cities than on land. We want to focus on these areas with our marketing and sales activities and convert entire cities, get a high acceptance rate there, like a threshold of 10%, and from there it can expand and grow.
I would wonder as well, this is the world of capitalism we live in, are there any rivals that you've identified? So if I think of ethical coins, the first one that comes to mind is Faircoin. It's not the only one. So you look at the market to see what else was there.
Yeah, we wouldn't consider them rivals. We would consider them partners because they probably have the same goal ultimately, to help the planet and the people. So we'd rather work with them than against them. Cooperation is one of our principles, not competition. Yeah, we have taken a look. We have found a few. There's an Eco coin. There's 3 coins, but we have not found a token which is really representative for a new system. So the unique selling proposition of Neco is that it's not just a currency. It's a complete financial system. The currency is stable. That's also a big difference. There's a few stable coins now coming out, but none of them have anything to do with values, with with ecological or social value. There's a few coins to do universal basic income, like Mana coin, but they're only focused on like one aspect of what Neco is. And we have not found really any coin that is collectively managed. There's a few, well, probably not true anymore. There's more coins coming out every day than you can count and be aware of. But that's also another thing that makes us unique is this collective management. We're not a chaotic organization. We have an organization. It's non-hierarchical. That's very important. A lot of cryptocurrencies, they use a decentralized technology. So, oh, we're decentralized. Yeah, your technology is decentralized. Yeah, but your organization is fully centralized with the CEO on top. So all power concentrated at the top. So what's the point of having a decentralized technology, right? More important is a decentralized organization. And I have not heard of any other organization that has a decentralized collective organization where it's decentralized on one side, no hierarchies, but also collective, involving all users in the decision-making process. I want to answer, to just come back to one before I forget. No, maybe you go ahead with your question. It might be closer related to the topic.
No, you go ahead. Using thoughts in your head.
Yeah. because you mentioned community currency. So here in Bavaria, we also have Germany's oldest regional currency called the Chiemgauer. It's a local currency. It's only valid in like 2 communities. And so we went to there, and we've taken some inspiration from them as well. It's why we have a token plan, additional called Globes, which is a token you earn like points, like for credit card payments, but not just for any payment, but for sustainable or local products. So with that token, we would also support more local products and local businesses rather than, you know, the big global supermarkets and global chains. So this is an additional thing that we have planned for the future to facilitate the idea of a community currency while still having a global currency. Neco, not limiting ourselves to just one small area, but being global, but having ways to incentivize consumption of local resources and local business.
Okay, then my quick aside was, I don't know of one that's decentralized in the same way that you are. The one I've come across is an Italian currency. Then anybody can join and they get a certain amount of basic income in that currency.
Yeah.
Just be a member of it. And I've joined it, but I found I can't use it anywhere.
Yeah.
People happen to be in Italy or Croatia, or 1 or 2 that started it have gone and done odd festival projects somewhere. But here in Finland, there's no services that I can get from any of the people.
Yeah.
So this, I think, is an issue about why I really think you're right to concentrate on an area where there can actually be an economy that functions.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's a challenge. You know, it will be a challenge for us is to grow and expand. The acceptance rate is always the key. Bitcoin has not been that successful in 10 years when you look at it. You know, it's a lot of people who have Bitcoins, but it's not really used. Most people who own them never have done any transactions with Bitcoin, and it's very cumbersome to do that. So this is a challenge we want to overcome. And the idea is that it's very simple to pay one person in Neco by only using his email address or social media ID or phone number. And then sending that money to that person, the person gets notified, can register, and then can convert, either use the Necos or convert them back into the currency they want. And that's how we win users, and we incentivize our existing users for doing that for us. So a viral approach.
So this is one way to promote it. I wondered if you'd thought about any events or festivals where you might promote the use of the currency. So what's happened in some tourist currencies have been limited in time. You don't have to limit it in time, or they've been limited in place.
Yeah.
And they've done so much where everybody who enters the festival has to have a certain amount of currency.
Yeah.
They pay a festival fee anyway, and then they can only use that in the festival.
Yeah.
Anything like this?
Yeah, well, we haven't planned on like the Neco is a token that doesn't have a time limit on it. Obviously, we could start another token. Not sure, but I think it's a great idea. We had plans to show up at Burning Man, for example, this year, but it got canceled. So festivals at the moment is not the best place to sell your tokens. But yeah, it's a good idea. It's a really good idea. What I think what my answer would be is with StackChain, we want to provide a technology that would allow people to set up their own tokens for such a festival. So if you have your own festival, let's say Burning Man, then you can use our technology StackChain to easily create a currency that you can use just for this limited period of time and for your festival. And that would not necessarily be something that Neco offers, but that our partners that can offer, and you can use our technology for managing that token. Or like here we have, I've come across a lot of areas where there's just a problem with mass tourism. And now again, Corona has helped with that a little bit, but there's also the value of sufficiency in our 7 core values means you have to limit things. You have to limit the amount of tourism that goes into certain areas. Otherwise, you're destroying the area. And that is where tokens can be used. So you can tokenize like tickets. You have a maximum of, let's say, 1,000 tickets to access this area. And then a community would say, hey, this is an area we want a maximum of 1,000 tourists. And then you can make a lot more money usually per person because the price will go up the more demand there is. And a good example is Bhutan, the country, where they just limit the amount of people that come in. And that way you increase the price. And you make a lot more with a lot less people than in countries like Thailand, where letting everyone in, the prices drop, and you have mass tourism and all the problems that come with mass tourism. So for that, the idea is to have StackChain to offer that as a technology where people can easily set up their own tokens, their own stacks, where they can set limits, for example, only 1,000 per month or so, and then sell them to people who want to use them.
Go on. Now this is a bit of a strange question, and I think it's kind of answered in a way. I've come from a perspective where I've looked at green economics. Within the idea of different capitals. So you have financial capital, you have knowledge capital, you have spiritual capital. You have a whole bunch of different ones. And I think I kind of get a feel. But had you thought about these different capitals and the capital flows or maximizing the capitals with Neco?
I'm not sure I fully understood your question. What do you mean with different capitals?
Okay, I'll explain it another time because it's too difficult to go in now with it.
All right. Yeah, you got my number, right? So you can.
Yeah, I think so. I've got you emailed us, so yeah. Okay. Okay, so next question again is a little bit strange. I've just been reading about Eleanor Ostrom and the 8 things that make a community work. So that's very. Are you familiar with her?
No.
Okay, well, I'll share that with you later as well.
Okay.
It's difficult if you're trying a long theory to explain it, then to ask what you think, and you're thinking about the theory and not answering it. So my question was really, money as a social institution means it reproduces a specific form of power. So I wondered which power are we reproducing here, and where will the power be going, and who will be holding the power?
Well, the idea of Neco is to have distributed power, so to avoid power. That's why we have a decentralized organization. That's why we do things collectively, because I think power is a problem. One of my favorite quotes is, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. You see that. So we want to avoid concentration of power. That's what decentralization, that's what blockchain is about. We also want to, my idea is also to kind of limit the financial power that individuals can have. So we have a lot of billionaires, a lot of very rich people holding a lot of power. I think, in the terms of sufficiency, I think there should be an upper limit on how much financial power you can have. Do you really need the 2nd billion? Or could we say, hey, there's a limit. You can only have maximum €1 billion or Necos on your account. And after that, just, give it back to the community. That's my take on power.
Is there a limit for how many? For somebody who's that way minded might start offering a trading way to build up their Neco. Is there going to be a limit?
That's going to be a decision for Colexa, not for me. But yeah, I would support it. An idea like this of setting a limit for how much Necos you can own. But that's up to Colexa to decide. I think a lot of people would support it. We could use methods like systemic consenting to come up with a limit. So for example, in our organization, we have a limit for like the maximum income. We have a tariff model which is collectively regulated through all our employees. We have a minimum hourly rate, and the maximum factor is always 10 times more than the smallest. This is a factor that we have come up through this method of systemic consenting, and that limits the amount of money that one person, like the CEO, can earn in a company, at least in our organization. Because what you see in the world is that there's a huge difference. Like look at Amazon, Jeff Bezos earns like 300,000 times more than the lowest paid employee in his organization, and that's just unfair. So with these kind of factors that we implement in our organization, that's kind of the idea. I think moving forward, there should be limits on how much power one individual has. And that's something that we want to use Colexa for, to come up with a collective idea where the collective consensus, okay, this is the number that should be the case. Right? We won't be able to prevent it because we cannot, obviously, they can, if Donald Trump wants to keep his 2nd billion, then he was not going to join Neco probably. But for our system, I think it would be nice to have these limitations in place.
Slightly related to that is many community currencies, and I'll go back to this book mooch where you swap books, and effectively books are a token. And you could put millions of books in there if you wanted to get millions of tokens. But one of the issues is that the books don't always circulate. And that's something that happens with lots of community currencies, is that certain people will have a service that draws a lot of tokens or money or whatever it happens to be to them, and other people are kind of spending it away. So I researched a community currency in Susma. It's a small town in Finland. And the result was all of the money went to the supermarket. And they took it back centrally to convert it to get the money back, the fiat currency. So the idea of having a local economy just didn't work. It all ended up in the market and the currency. So there are various mechanisms that you can have to do that. So one, for example, is demurrage. There are other ways to make circulation happen. So do you have any ideas or thoughts about how to make the currency circulate? EBI is a great one.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's having the right balance of the right diversity of people in the community. Diversity is one of our 7 core values. Diversity means, individuals, poor, rich, so from all kind of different levels of society. And then acceptance points like stores that accept them, companies that accept them, organizations. This is also a target group for us, organizations like Greenpeace. And a lot of companies who want to increase their corporate social responsibility accounts. In order to have this, we have like on one of our slides, you can see these 8 target groups that we have. From we want to work with banks, we want to work with businesses, we want to work with investors, with individuals, we want to work with even the governments to work together with them, not against them, to create a diverse group of ecosystem that we are in, where all different parties are being reflected. And I think that's the way how we can manage a good circulation. It's a diversity of people using it, can make sure it's going in all directions and it's just not concentrating in one supermarket. So Marcus, if you don't mind, there's a few questions in the chat. I would probably like to switch over to them now and then come back to you.
Okay. Yeah. Can I just one quick point on that?
Yeah.
His name is Jeremy September, and he's been researching long-lasting currencies in Japan. They've gone on for about 10 years. And one way they did that was the currency could always be swapped for rice. Everybody eats rice. At various points, you'd swap all the currency out for rice, and you could start again.
Yeah. Anyway. No, good idea. Well, in our initial white paper, the first version, we had the food standard in there. We wanted to exchange Neco for 1 Neco equals 1 meal. We took it out because it got too complicated for some people to understand, and we said, okay, let's keep that for the future. But that's another idea that we had, to be able to exchange Neco for a meal. Would add stability too. Okay, it's always you get a meal for it, and people will build more trust into it because they know they can convert it for something they can actually eat. So money you can eat.
You answer the other questions.
Okay. So there's a question from Nell. So you said that you're planning to provide the stack chain collector to other companies. Would that be free of charge? No, we will charge for that because we also have costs behind it. And the idea is to use these additional ICOs to bring in more money into our reserve and also increase, the money in our system. So these are for profit things, but obviously the prices would be probably determined by Collexa. So we collectively, our users determine what the prices are for these services. Yeah, we want to make profit out of it. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So the rest of your question is like, would we use that to finance universal basic income? Exactly. It's another way of income for us, another source of revenue that brings in fiat into our reserve, increase our reserve, and allows us to do more for people and the planet. So we just increase our money supply and help us to grow even faster. These are really cool technologies, in my opinion. So each of them, Collector and StackChain, could be a separate company, a separate ICO, and still make a lot of money. We think with StackChain, we get revolutionized the blockchain technology, and with Collector, we have a good alternative to artificial intelligence, collective intelligence. You know, everyone was focused on artificial intelligence right now. Everyone's developing it, but they're neglecting collective intelligence. And collective intelligence has some big advantages over artificial intelligence. It's much cheaper to achieve, and it's more humane, and it has intuition. That's something that our artificial intelligence still doesn't have. So these two technologies are products that came out of necessity for Neco. We wanted to have a carbon neutral blockchain technology. We couldn't work with blockchain, that just didn't work with our values, and we needed Collector. But once we have used them internally, we realized, hey, we can actually sell these technologies to the market and make more money with that. Good. Then there's a question from Stefan. Can we investigate that community usage option? What would it take, in your view, to have a currency like that? Oops. Like that being used in a city like Kopangan? Yeah, I was thinking about that. Actually, when I was in Kopangan, I was thinking about rolling out universal basic income there first, because it's really important. So, you know, it would be nice to, if we get support in a community, people run around, get shops to accept Neco, and more people could use it. So I think it's really about focusing marketing activities on one area where we maybe get the buy-in from, you know, politicians to support this, and then build examples, communities where certain things have worked. We can test certain things in a community. Like if you want to test a new feature, we can use a community to try it out first. And if you think that's a cool cool feature, then we can roll it out globally. So as I said, when I was there, I was thinking, hey, that's a good timing. We could do universal basic income in Kopangan. You know, still an option to do. Important is to get enough people to accept the currency in this environment. And from there, I think everything is possible. Okay, yeah, then another comment from Guri. You've missed the presentation. Yeah, you came in a little late, unfortunately. Presentation's over, but I'm still recording it, and I'm gonna share the recording with you so you can watch the presentation again. All right, and we're still in the questions phase. So I know Marcus had a lot of questions. Are there any other questions in in our audience? So if you have one, please unmute yourself or just send something in the chat, and we will answer them. Okay, no more questions. Then back to you, Marcus. You probably still have some. You're muted. I can't hear you.
I made some notes. So I'm kind of looking through my notes and constructing questions. Is it political money? Would you say it's politics, a political ideal behind it?
No, we want to stay away from politics. You know, again, here diversity. I've talked to a lot of political groups, especially here in Germany, to the Social Democrats who like the social aspect of Neco, then to the Green Party and the other Green Party. They like the environmental part of it, and even the Conservatives were part of our organization. They like the profit aspect of it. So I think with this positive triple bottom line, we have aspects for every party that they might support. So far, my feedback was from a lot of these parties, they really like the idea. On the other side, we don't want to get involved into political things, because what I've realized with politics is it just creates barriers between people. So for example, here, the Bavarian government recently changed a much more green course. You know, they are more focused now on the environment, which is great. They learned the lesson from the last election. But then I talked to people from the Green Party who are upset about that, because they think they're just stealing their ideas and their voters. I was like, my God, they are doing something positive and you're against it because they are doing it and not you. This kind of thinking is what I experience a lot when I work with political parties or politicians. So that's why we've decided to stay out of this. We want to work with any party that supports our values. There are also parties who are, absolutely not okay with our values. Perfect, no problem. But I think with most common parties in most countries, there's a lot of overlap in many areas. But I wouldn't consider us a political currency, and also think that the political way is just a very slow and very cumbersome way, and that's why we've chosen to do it through a currency, to build a system through a currency and not through like a political party and a political movement.
Okay, I've only got 2 more questions now, but I'm sure lots more will come up in the future, and so I don't want to go on forever and ever. This question is a bit of a strange one, so bear with me. Money is neither socially neutral, meaning the institution of money can promote egalitarian allocation of power, which we want. If the money system is to be neutral, it has to go large-scale reform and be complemented with local monetary systems as a balancing force. So that's my thinking behind the question. So we see Neco as replacing money or complementing it as it grows. What would you like to see?
I think in the future we will see different tokens or different systems coming up. So a diversity of system. Right now we have a monoculture, and that's, as we know, if you plant the monoculture of crops, the monocrop, it's very susceptible to parasites. So what we see coming now, while this old system is collapsing, there will be new systems coming up. I think Neco will be one of them, but there will be others too. There might still be, Bitcoin in the future, which is for the dark web, and some certain tokens or currencies that are target on a specific group where they generate more value for the specific target group. So I think the future will be more diverse. We already see that. We had around 200 fiat currencies in the world, and we have thousands of cryptocurrencies already. Okay, most of these cryptocurrencies are not really currencies, but you see there's a lot of diversity coming. And as with every technology, like when we go back to the .com crisis or .com bubble, you saw a lot of companies coming up, and then boom, boom, a lot of these companies crashing and disappearing from the market, with a few big ones surviving and continuing in the future. And I think we will see the same on the crypto side. We will see different currencies, global currencies, local currencies, specialized currencies, and people will just have different choices of currency they can use for certain purposes. So you might have not just one Neco wallet, you also might have another whatever wallet for your local community that you're living in, and then you have this option to convert between the currencies. From our side, Neco, we're very open to working with other cryptocurrencies in our reserve that are stable. Stability is the key. We are not accepting Bitcoin because of the instability, and also because of some environmental concerns and legal concerns. But as long as it is stable, we can put that into our reserve and then facilitate the exchange between these currencies. So I think that's where we are going in the future with cryptocurrencies, a set of currencies that will be used on a global scale. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very well.
Okay.
My last question then is what's called a virtuous circle sometimes, when, as you trade with people, other things happen at the same time. So what else comes with using the Neco? You have a small community that's been testing it. Yeah. How do people feel about using the Neco money? Does that make sense? How are they affected by it?
That's a good question. I should probably start to, it's a good question for a survey, actually. How are you being affected? So what I see a lot is people think more about volunteering. Now, I found it was quite hard initially to get people to invest some time to do volunteering. And this is changing. And I think the karma token is an important incentive. So we're incentivizing people to think about volunteering, what they could do. So about being more active in a community, about doing, doing positive actions. I think that's one of the key, the key areas where we're changing the behavior. In the future, especially with the Global token, we also want to change the consumption behavior of people. So that they focus more on buying healthy and sustainable products, because they will get more globes for these kind of products, and to change the consumptive pattern. Also to create more awareness of what you're consuming. And then, the services are a good thing. Universal basic income is just the first service. We want to provide education in future and healthcare, but not in the way that our existing system works, with a school system that only educates young people and completely forgets about older people, and is based on knowledge that most people don't even need. 80% of what I learned at school I never needed again in my life. So it's about people actually choosing their own courses where they feel drawn to, they will feel attracted. So rather than telling them this is what you have to learn because it's important for you, no. Or a healthcare system which is built on actually healing people and not keeping them sick, because then you can sell them pharmaceuticals all the time, but really trying to help them on a holistic view with natural medicines, with with changing diet, with yoga, meditation, these things also through courses. So I think we want to educate people to open up, to change their behavior, to become healthier, to become more educated, and to lose their fear, and to be able to invest more time with their family, rather than being this work slave that we are now, working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, having more freedom in your life. So, I reached my financial system independence through selling my last company. And one of the ideas behind Neco is to share it, to give other people financial independence too, through universal basic income. Because that's where you can really start thinking, okay, now I have enough money to survive. What do I really want to do in my life? Do I work behind the counter at McDonald's? Or do I want to do something else, which in the past was probably not possible because it wouldn't bring me money. But if I'm not, if I don't have to make money with that, I can do this or that. I can help other people. I can plant trees. I can, have way more things that I can do. Because I'm freed from this, the obligation to make money to survive.
I think actually the karma token is really an interesting idea. I'd like to explore that more, but not now. The last thing is, those are the questions I had. As I said, more things will arise. But one thing I wondered about is, when we talk about different parts of the world, there are different income levels that people have. So here in Finland, it's quite an expensive country.
Yeah.
But I contrast it with Thailand, where I've been in Thailand. I can see it's much cheaper to live there. Yeah. And there are other countries that are even cheaper than Thailand. So how will that work? If you want to work for Neco, you'll get the same income. Is that correct, wherever you are in the world?
No. So our tariff model internally, when you work for an organization, they depend on the country. So for every country, we have a different model. It's a different minimum hourly rate. The factor 10 between the minimum and the max is always the same. That's a global constant. But the minimum rate depends on a per country basis. In terms of universal basic income, one of our goals is also to stop thinking in borders, to ignore borders, because they don't exist in real. They're just lines drawn on maps, and many of them are very random. So not thinking in borders, like this country is, Thailand, they should have less universal basic income than in that country. We want to make things more global. Our idea is really to remove the border thinking and think in global. We're all one humanity. It's one planet. Forget about the borders and try to make things global. The same we want to issue the same amount of universal basic income to each country, knowing that obviously 100 Neco has a higher value in Thailand than in the UK. But also over there, they could need more money because they don't have the social network that you already have in the UK, or they don't have the chances to make that much money that you have in the UK. So that will lead to more equality on a global basis, you know, not trying to, okay, have all differences which come from past, you know, because of, you know, different reasons in the past. We have different levels of wealth in these countries, of income. We want to equalize that more. Equality is one of our core values. We don't want to enforce even more difference between the countries. We want to make them more equal.
You want to challenge the disparity, not reinforce it.
Exactly. Exactly.
You've mentioned a little bit about the governance structure, about how things work with anybody who becomes an investor becomes part of the organization and makes decisions. Are there some guards against something like entryism? So let's say there were 1,000 people who decided, well, there's money here. Mm-hmm. And I had this experience myself. I lived in Britain. Mm-hmm. And as a child, you put money into a building society. When you were an adult, you had a saving history that you could then borrow money to buy a house. Mm-hmm. And the Conservative government that likes to grab money converted all the building societies to banks.
Yeah.
You had a certain amount of money, you got a payment, a windfall payment. At my time, I was at university and I had no savings there. So my building society was turned into a bank and I got no payment. Mm-hmm. It was gone. So I know that this is a real issue with financial organizations, that somebody looks and thinks, well, there's some treasure, maybe we can grab it. So do we have something to safeguard?
Yes. Yeah, we have a couple of them. There's a very good concern also raised quite often. So safeguards. So first of all, even though we talk about collective decision making, most of the decisions within our organization are taken by certain roles. So in our organization, there are roles, and if someone has that role, he can make that decision. So collector is also a role. So collector can make some decisions like a referendum, but in most other decisions, collector is just like an advisor. You know, that role has the authority to make a decision. For example, our IT guys have the power to decide to make the button blue or green, but they can ask collector what collector wants. And obviously when they ask, they are encouraged to use what collector wants, not come up with their own decisions. So in most decisions, collector is more or less an advisor, not a direct decision maker. And then we have a constitution with our values where certain things are written in, like, for example, if collector would be overrun by men, they want to, you know, dominate women and make discriminating decisions, that would be against the value of equality in our constitution. And that decision would then be stopped by our supervisory board. So the supervisory board can overrule or veto a decision from collector if it does not comply with our constitution. And last but not least, I also have a certain extra roles to override a few things if things are going wrong, like in the organization or vision. You know, these are things that certain authorities that I hold in my role as the founder of this organization, that would allow me in a case of emergency to interfere and kick people out, for example, and say, hey, this was a foreign invasion. We don't want that in our system. Let's remove them. So we have some, you know, safeguards to prevent this kind of thing of happening.
This isn't about Neco. It's a very quick question. You're probably aware that China has introduced a reputation system, which has a whole bunch of different aspects on it, from whether you're nice and polite to your neighbors, to whether you pay taxes or whether you've been caught speeding, and then sanctions depending on that. Well, so this reminds me a little bit of this with the karma tokens. So what do you think about the Chinese system, and there's some lessons for that?
Yeah, you know, it's I think there are some positive sides about the Chinese system. There's always the challenge with China. They're enforcing it. They don't give people a choice, and they're brainwashing their people to accept it. So I also think there's value in these kind of systems that change the behavior of people, make them more friendly and nicer, and lead to positive change in behavior. but it should always come with a few aspects. So it should be, it should be transparent. People can opt out and use their free will. It should not be enforced over people. It's always, they want to join, they want to support, and it should be more on positive incentives than on negative punishments. But in general, I think, I think the approach that China is going is not a bad approach in general. If it leads to an improvement in behavior of people and to more happiness, it's good. If it leads to more control over the population through authorities, that's the thing we would like to avoid.
Okay, thank you very much. You've answered all my questions for now. And yeah, it's been great. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to ask.
Yeah, thank you for these questions, Marcus. They're really good questions to bring up. So really glad you brought them up here, so that other people can listen to it in the recording. Okay, any other questions here, guys? So last chance before we close this session. 3, 2, 1. Okay, guys, then thank you very much for your time and the good questions. Keep in mind, today is September 29th. So if you want to participate in Universal Basic Income, the deadline to register is tomorrow. Circulate the link again. All you need to do is to register first. Whether you invest or not, that is up to you. You can we still have a few days time to transfer the money. But then we change the value, and then if your money arrives after, you will receive the new conversion rate. So I can only encourage you to register. It's for free, and then you can apply for Universal Basic Income. So do that. Other than that, I wish you all the best. Have a good day wherever you are, and hope we stay in touch. Bye-bye.